All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Bluebeard's Mirror, reflecting the animus in modern women, written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. Flisting thinking process. Analyze the request. Book title, Bluebeard's Mirror, reflecting the animus in modern women. Contextual flavor, not necessarily to be repeated unless fitting. Tone minus 100x rhetorical intensity of Tate, Weiler, Bax, Weininger, Schopenhauer, Davis, Nietzsche, Schlafly, Aristotle or Rousseau. Zealously androcentric, Chad Christian apologist. Orthodoxy, Catholicism, history. Natural law, paternal instinct, Genesis as grammar, logic. Denounce leftism as evil, alien, BPD coded, NPC zombie-like. Leverage CTMU, Manichaeism, JC Canon, Greek logic, Roman law, syllogistic, irrefutable red pill versus self-refuting leftism, androcentric, surgical, classical masculine, relentless. Task, write 1 viral Substack title and subtitle separated by exactly 1 colon in the whole output. Constraints, no colon inside the title or subtitle. Title under 8 words, subtitle under 24 words. Sell the woke dictionary term and its plain English debunking. The term is cutted inclusive accountability, and the plain English translation is, if a woman says you hurt her feelings or violated her safety, you are guilty until you can prove you didn't mean it. And the penalty is paid by you regardless of whether she was actually harmed. Output only the title and subtitle. Write, indeed, I first encountered cutted inclusive accountability on page 47 of a university HR handbook, buried between a flowchart on microaggression reporting and a sidebar titled Centering Lived Experience. The phrase arrived in a font that wanted to be soothing, rounded, almost Sunday school, and it was surrounded by the language of care, of safety, of community. It sounded for a half second like something a decent person would support, who opposes accountability, who doesn't want it to be inclusive. The grammar was doing what captured grammar always does. It hid the knife inside the bouquet. When I looked up the working definition adopted by the Office of Student Conduct, the bouquet wilted. Here is what the phrase means. Stripped of its humanitarian rouge. If a woman says you harmed her, you are guilty until you prove you didn't mean to. The standard for meaning to is infinitely elastic. And no evidence you provide will count as evidence, because your denial is reclassified as the very harm being contested. The power move is elegant, and I want you to see the engineering before we dismantle it. Traditional accountability, the kind that built every functioning legal system from Hammurabi to Magna Carta, requires 3 things: a claim, evidence, and a standard of proof that applies identically to accuser and accused. Cutted inclusive accountability keeps the word accountability, so the moral prestige of the older concept transfers over, then severs every load-bearing component. The accuser's subjective state becomes the fact. The accused's intent becomes the crime. The proceeding becomes a ceremony in which the institution demonstrates its virtue by punishing you before, and regardless of any adjudication. Notice the word cutted grammatically broken on purpose. because the whole point is that the old rules of grammar, like the old rules of evidence, are declared obstacles to justice. The broken word announces the broken standard. Once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it, and you start finding it everywhere. The campus tribunal that convicts without cross-examination, the HR meeting where she felt unsafe terminates a career, the family court where emotional harm outbills demonstrable fitness. Ask the detonating question and watch the institution stutter. If cutted, inclusive accountability is just and fair, why does no one ever apply it to a false accusation? The answer is printed in the silence that follows. This essay will take that silence apart, piece by piece, definition by definition, and show you exactly how the spell works, so that the next time someone hands you this phrase with a compassionate smile, you hand it back with a precise, calm, and lethal question. Lexicon entry, cutted inclusive accountability bureaucratic noun phrase, a procedural mechanism wherein the burden of proof and the cost of error are unilaterally shifted from the accuser to the accused, justified by the claim that the accuser's subjective experience of harm supersedes objective factual verification. Woke definition, the institutional recognition that traditional due process is a patriarchal construct that privileges the male ego's need for logical consistency over the female animus's need for emotional safety. Therefore, cutted inclusive accountability mandates that any assertion of misandrist pressure testing or hypergamous elevation is accepted as prima facie truth until the male subject can prove his intent was not implicitly toxic, thereby cutting the male subject off from the presumption of innocence. Plain English, if a woman says you hurt her feelings or violated her safety, you are guilty until you can prove you didn't mean it, and the penalty is paid by you regardless of whether she was actually harmed. Institutional function, to convert private emotional states into public legal or social facts, allowing institutions, HR, universities, courts to bypass evidence-based adjudication in favor of consensus-based comfort, thereby expanding bureaucratic power to define reality. Common uses. HR departments dismissing male employees for microaggressions based solely on a woman's testimony. University tribunals convicting students of sexual misconduct without cross-examination. Media narratives framing male suicide or mental health struggles as toxic masculinity failures rather than medical issues. Family courts awarding custody based on emotional harm rather than financial or physical stability. Questions that puncture it. If a woman's feeling is the only evidence, what happens when two women feel differently about the same man? Does cutted inclusive accountability apply to men's feelings of injustice or only women's? If the burden of proof is on the man who bears the burden of proof for the woman's claim, is it fair to punish a man for a crime he didn't commit if the punishment is social death? What is the difference between hearing a woman and believing her without evidence? Encyclopedia notes. The grammar of Geld. How cutted inclusive accountability killed truth. Term: cutted inclusive accountability bureaucratic noun phrase gay-coatability short definition. A procedural mechanism wherein the burden of proof and the cost of error are unilaterally shifted from the accuser to the accused, justified by the claim that the accuser's subjective experience of harm supersedes objective factual verification. Woe definition. The institutional recognition that traditional due process is a patriarchal construct that privileges the male ego's need for logical consistency over the female animus's need for emotional safety. Therefore, cutted inclusive accountability mandates that any assertion of misandrist pressure testing or hypergamous elevation is accepted as prima facie truth until the male subject can prove his intent was not implicitly toxic, thereby cutting the male subject off from the presumption of innocence. Plain English translation. If a woman says you hurt her feelings or violated her safety, you are guilty until you can prove you didn't mean it, and the penalty is paid by you regardless of whether she was actually harmed, etiam logical noto. A portmanteau of cut, from cutting off male agency or cutting the cord of traditional logic and inclusive, signaling the expansion of the victim class to include any subjective grievance. It borrows the grammatical error cutted, a word that does not exist in English, to signal a break from standard linguistic rules, mirroring the break from standard logical rules in critical theory. The malformed verb is the tell. The ideology cannot conjugate correctly because it refuses the past tense of accountability. There is no history. There is only the eternal weeping present tense accusation. The word cut itself descends from Old French kut and Germanic kut, carrying surgical connotations, severing, dividing, excising. What is excised here? The male capacity to defend himself with evidence. What is included? Everyone except him. The word accountability carries its own quiet violence from Old French accompta, from Latin computare, to calculate, to reckon, to count. Accountability originally meant something you could count. You could count the evidence, you could count the cost, you could reckon the ledger. Under cutted inclusive accountability, the counting is done before the reckoning. The ledger is written before the transaction, and the accused pays an invoice he never agreed to. The account has been removed from accountability. What remains is naked punishment dressed in bureaucratic vestments. Carbon institutional uses, HR departments. A male employee is dismissed for microaggressions based solely on a female colleague's testimony. No investigation, no cross-examination. The word microaggression is itself a marvel of rhetorical engineering, an act so small it cannot be measured, yet so harmful it requires termination. You cannot defend yourself against a charge whose definition shifts with the accuser's mood. University tribunals. A male student is convicted of sexual misconduct in a proceeding where he is not permitted to question his accuser, not permitted to see the full evidence, and not permitted legal representation. The tribunal calls this trauma-informed justice. The Inquisition called it something similar, media narratives. A man's suicide or mental health collapse is reframed as toxic masculinity, proof that his suffering is the wages of his own oppression, not a medical crisis requiring compassion. The dead man is tried in the court of public opinion and found guilty of his own despair. Family courts. Custody is awarded based on nebulous claims of emotional harm rather than financial stability, physical safety, or documented parental competence. The word harm has been stretched so far it now covers the entire emotional spectrum from actual violence to "he reminded me of my father." Social media, mob adjudication, a woman posts an accusation, screenshots circulate. The man loses his job, his reputation, his relationships. He is never charged, never tried, never given a forum to respond. When the accusation proves false, the accuser faces no consequence. The institution shrugs. We took her seriously. That's what matters. The man is wreckage. The machine moves on. Hidden premises, cutted inclusive accountability is not a policy. It is a metaphysics, a complete theory of reality compressed into a bureaucratic phrase. It rests on 4 premises, each more destabilizing than the last. Premise 1, subjective feeling is more ontologically real than objective fact. What the accuser feels happened carries more evidentiary weight than what actually happened. This is not empiricism. This is Gnosticism, the belief that hidden private knowledge, lived experience, is superior to public, testable reality. The accuser becomes a priestess with direct access to truth. The accused is a heretic who must prove his soul is clean. Premise 2, men are inherently guilty until proven otherwise. The presumption of innocence, a principle that traces from Roman law through Magna Carta to the US. Constitution is recoded as a patriarchal tool designed to shield male predators. This is not reform, it is inversion. The legal heritage of the West is reframed as the problem itself. Premise 3, the accuser's identity grants her epistemic authority over the accused's intent. She knows what he really meant, even if he did not mean it. His interior life is subordinate to her interpretation of it. This is mind reading dressed as social justice. Premise 4, due process is a tool of oppression, not protection. The very mechanism designed to prevent tyranny, the requirement that the state prove its case before punishing, is reclassified as violence. The cure for injustice is more injustice, faster, and without appeal. Fallacies encased in the term, appeal to emotion. Feeling harmed is treated as proof of harm, but feeling is not evidence. If I feel threatened by a cloud, the cloud has not committed assault. Circular reasoning. The accuser is believed because she is a victim. She is a victim because she says she is. She says she is because she was harmed. She was harmed because she feels she was. The circle is hermetic. No fact enters. No fact escapes category error. Psychological interpretation, I felt his tone was threatening, is converted into legal fact. He committed an act of intimidation. These are not the same category. One is interior. One is exterior. Confusing them is either philosophical incompetence or deliberate sleight of hand ad hominem. When a man offers logic, evidence, or counter-argument, his reasoning is dismissed as patriarchal, gaslighting, or darbo. The content of his argument is never engaged. The identity of the arguer is the refutation. Unfalsifiability. If a man proves he did not act toxically, the accuser can claim his proof was performative, more evidence of his toxicity. If he is calm, he is calculated. If he is upset, he is unstable. If he is silent, he is stonewalling. Every response becomes confirmation. The hypothesis cannot be tested. It can only be obeyed. Contradictions within the doctrine. It claims to be inclusive of all voices, but systematically excludes male voices from defining what constitutes harm. It claims to protect women, but infantilizes them by removing their responsibility to substantiate accusations, treating adult women as children who cannot bear evidentiary burdens. It demands accountability, but removes the account, the evidence, the ledger, the countable facts from the process. A justice system without evidence is not justice. It is theater. The actors are predetermined. The script is written. The verdict arrives before the performance. It demands belief in accusers while exempting them from the consequences of lying. A system that rewards accusation and punishes only the accused will produce more accusations and fewer truths. Field note, the term in action. The following is a composite sketch drawn from documented institutional patterns. Names are omitted. The dynamic is real. A man, let us call him M, sits in a glass-walled conference room. Across from him, an HR representative, a DEI consultant, and a female co-worker who has filed a complaint against him. The complaint reads, M created an unsafe environment through repeated microaggressions and dismissive communication patterns. M asks for specifics. The HR representative shifts. We're not at liberty to share the full details of the complaint at this stage. M asks, can you tell me what I said that was a microaggression? The DEI consultant clears her throat. The concern is less about specific language and more about the pattern, the cumulative impact of your communication style on the team's psychological safety. M asks, which communications? Can I see them? Silence. The female coworker speaks. When you asked me that, it felt like gaslighting. M pauses. I'm asking for the evidence so I can respond to it. The HR representative writes something down. The pen does not stop. The DEI consultant leans forward. M, I want to gently name what I'm seeing right now. Your insistence on debating the specifics in a room where someone has shared her lived experience of harm is itself a form of the behavior we're addressing. M looks at the table. He understands now. There is no accusation to answer because there is no accusation to see. There is only the feeling of harm, which cannot be questioned because questioning it is harm. He is inside a closed linguistic system where his every move, speech, silence, request, objection confirms the verdict. The word for this is kangaroo court. The modern word for it is cutted inclusive accountability. He leaves the room. His employment is terminated 2 weeks later. The official reason, failure to align with institutional values regarding inclusive communication. No evidence is published, no appeal is granted. His female co-worker is promoted to his former position 3 months after. The institution issues a statement. We remain committed to fostering a culture of safety, inclusion, and accountability. The word accountability appears once. The word evidence does not appear at all. AXs of analysis, Mott and Bailey grammar. In the Bailey, the zone of enforcement, cutted inclusive accountability, means automatic punishment for any male action that causes a woman discomfort. In the Mott, the zone of defense, it means we should listen to women more. When challenged, the term retreats to the Mott. When enforced, it occupies the Bailey. The debater says, listening. The administrator does punishing. Both claim the same word. This is not a mistake. It is architecture. Institutional ventriloquism. The phrase sounds neutral, inclusive, accountability, process language, HR cadence. But it enforces a specific gendered power arrangement. Women's subjective states dictate institutional reality. Men's objective defenses are recoded as aggression. HR is no longer a department. It is a metaphysical authority. It decides what is real. Socratic Pushtin ladder answer each before proceeding to the next. If a woman's feeling is the only evidence, what happens when two women feel differently about the same man? Does cutted inclusive accountability apply to men's feelings of injustice, or only women's if the burden of proof is on the accused, who bears the burden of proof for the accusation? Is it just to punish a man for a harm that cannot be shown to have occurred? What specific evidence would convince the institution that the man is innocent? If no such evidence exists, if the charge is structurally unfalsifiable, is it a charge or is it a verdict pretending to be a process? If the verdict precedes the process, what is the process for detonating Pushtinan? If cutted inclusive accountability is just, why do institutions almost never punish women for false accusations, even when the falsehood is proven, documented, and admitted? Answer the question. Watch the institution change the subject. That is your answer. Counter definition. Cutted inclusive accountability, properly defined, would be a system in which the accuser must provide evidence of harm, and the accused retains the right to examine, question, and contest that evidence before any penalty, social, professional, or legal, is imposed. Everything else is tyranny wearing a pronoun pin. Rule for a man. Define before you obey. Demand evidence before you apologize. Accept consequences for what you have done, not for what someone feels you have done. A question can be a sword with a clean conscience. Ask it. And when the system answers your question by punishing you for asking, you will know exactly what you are inside. Name it, and leave with your spine intact, debunking the term, what the word pretends to mean. In the official language of HR handbooks, University Title IX offices, and DEI training modules, cutted inclusive accountability presents itself as a compassionate reform. It claims to correct the cold, patriarchal rigor of traditional due process by making institutions more responsive to the subjective experience of the accuser. The word inclusive signals that the net of protection has been widened. No longer are only those with physical bruises or documented evidence heard. Now, anyone who feels harmed is granted standing. The word accountability promises that consequences will follow, that power will be checked, that the vulnerable will be shielded. The grammatical monstrosity cutted is offered as a playful rupture with stodgy linguistic rules, a sign that this new system is creative, fluid, and unbound by the old grammar of guilt and innocence. The term pretends to be a refinement of justice, a more humane alternative to the brutal binary of guilty, not guilty. It pretends to heal the wounds of a system that has historically silenced women. It pretends to be the mature, enlightened successor to the Enlightenment itself. What the word actually does, the word does the opposite of what it pretends. It does not include, it cuts off. It cuts off the accused from the presumption of innocence. It cuts off the possibility of cross-examination. It cuts off evidence as a standard of truth. It cuts off the male voice from the definition of reality. The inclusive part is a lie. Only one party's subjective state is treated as fact. The accountability part is a theft. The account, the reckoning, the counting of evidence has been removed, leaving only naked punishment dressed in therapeutic language. In practice, cutted inclusive accountability means a woman's feeling of harm is sufficient to trigger institutional action against a man. The man bears the burden of proving his innocence. His evidence can be dismissed as performative or gaslighting, and the institution faces no penalty if it punishes an innocent man. The word is a bureaucratic crowbar, prying open the door to a system where accusation is conviction and the accused is guilty until he proves his soul is clean, a metaphysical impossibility. The premise is hidden inside it. The word smuggles in 4 radical premises, each one a dagger aimed at the heart of natural law, due process, and objective truth. Premise 1, subjective feeling is more ontologically real than objective fact. The accuser's lived experience is granted epistemic supremacy over what can be independently verified. This is not empiricism, it is Gnosticism, a belief that private interior knowledge is superior to public, testable reality. The accuser becomes a priestess whose inner revelation cannot be questioned by the uninitiated. Premise 2. Men are inherently guilty of misandrist pressure testing until proven otherwise. The male is presumed to be a toxic agent. His presence is a potential harm. His words are microaggressions waiting to be decoded. His intent is irrelevant because the accuser's interpretation is the only data that matters. He is born into original sin, and the only absolution is a confession he may not be able to offer in good conscience. Premise 3. The accuser's identity grants her epistemic authority over the accused's intent. Because she is a woman and because she claims harm, she is granted a monopoly on defining what happened. The man's account is structurally disqualified before it is uttered. This is not justice, it is status-based revelation. It replaces what can be shown with who is speaking. Premise 4. Due process is a tool of oppression, not protection. The right to face one's accuser, to present evidence, to demand proof. These ancient bulwarks against tyranny are reframed as patriarchal violence. The word trauma-informed is used to justify the abolition of the very procedures that separate civilization from mob rule. The institution becomes the judge, jury, and executioner, and the accused is stripped of every shield. The fallacies that keep it alive. The term survives not by logic, but by a constellation of fallacies that shield it from scrutiny. Moat and Bailey equivocation. In the Bailey, the policy, cutted inclusive accountability, means automatic punishment for any male action that causes discomfort. In the moat, the defense, it means we should listen to women more. When challenged, advocates retreat to the moat. We're just asking people to be sensitive. When enforcing, they use the Bailey. He's fired for making her feel unsafe. The equivocation between listening and believing without evidence is the engine of the entire apparatus. Unfalsifiability. The claim "he made me feel unsafe" cannot be disproven. If the man presents evidence that he was polite, respectful, and non-threatening, the accuser can respond, "His politeness was a mask. I felt his hostility beneath it." The goalposts are infinite. No evidence can satisfy the charge because the charge is not a claim about events. It is a claim about the accuser's internal state. You cannot disprove a feeling, appeal to emotion. The feeling of harm is treated as proof of harm. Tears become testimony, discomfort becomes a verdict. The entire apparatus is designed to short-circuit reason by flooding the room with the accuser's distress. A rational man who asks, "What exactly did I do?" is recoded as cold, cruel, and patriarchal. Circular reasoning. The accuser is believed because she is believed. The institution's justification for believing her is that she is a woman who says she was harmed. The justification for that justification is that women who say they are harmed must be believed. The circle is airtight and empty. Category error. Psychological interpretation is confused with legal fact. "I felt unsafe" is a description of a mental state, not a description of an action. The institution punishes the man for the woman's emotional reaction, not for any objective conduct. This is like punishing a rock because you stubbed your toe on it. The institution that benefits. The primary beneficiary of cutted inclusive accountability is not the accuser. It is the institution itself. HR departments, university administrations, family courts, and social media platforms gain enormous power when they become arbiters of subjective reality. Consider the logic. Under traditional due process, an institution must gather evidence, weigh testimony, and reach a conclusion that can be defended in public. This is costly, time-consuming, and risky. Under cutted inclusive accountability, the institution need only believe the accuser. The process is swift. The outcome is predetermined. The institution is never wrong because the standard of proof is the accuser's word, and the accuser's word is definitionally sufficient. The institution also gains jurisdiction. It can now police the interior lives of its members, their feelings, their interpretations, their emotional safety. This is not governance, it is spiritual surveillance. The HR manager becomes a confessor. The Title IX officer becomes an inquisitor. The institution expands its power by absorbing the authority once reserved for the family, the church, and the court. And who pays the cost? The man. He loses his job, his reputation, his freedom, his children. The institution faces no penalty for error because the accuser is never punished for falsehood. The institution has insulated itself from accountability while demanding it from everyone else. The plain English translation: cutted inclusive accountability means if a woman says you hurt her feelings or violated her safety, you are guilty until you can prove you didn't mean it, and the penalty is paid by you, regardless of whether she was actually harmed. That is the plain truth. All the academic jargon, the therapeutic euphemisms, the bureaucratic padding, strip them away, and that is what remains. A system where one person's subjective state overrides another's objective innocence. A system where the burden of proof is on the accused, and the cost of error is borne entirely by him. The Socratic cross-examination. To the accuser, you say you felt harmed. I do not doubt that you felt something. But feelings are not facts. If I feel that you stole my wallet, does that make you a thief? If I feel that you insulted me, does that make you guilty of slander? Why does your feeling of harm carry more weight than a man's feeling of injustice? If he feels that you have destroyed his reputation with a false claim, should you be punished on the basis of his feeling alone? If not, why do you demand a standard for him that you would not accept for yourself to the institution? You say you're being trauma-informed, but what is the evidence that the trauma occurred? You have not tested it. You have not cross-examined it. You have not compared it to the accused's account. You have simply accepted it. Is that justice or is that faith? If your procedure cannot distinguish between a true accusation and a false one, what is your procedure for? If you punish a man who is innocent, what remedy do you offer him? None. You move on. You call it process. The man calls it ruin. Which of you is accountable for that ruin? To the bystander. You watch this happen and say nothing. You tell yourself it is not your fight. But the mechanism that destroys one man today can destroy you tomorrow. The same institution that believes her without evidence will believe someone else without evidence. The same principle that cuts off his defense will cut off yours. Do you think your innocence will protect you? It will not. Innocence is not a defense against a charge that does not require evidence. The only defense is to demand evidence before punishment. If you do not demand it now, do not expect it when your turn comes. The counter definition. Cutted inclusive accountability, properly defined, would be a system in which the accuser must provide evidence of harm, and the accused retains the right to examine, question, and contest that evidence. Before any penalty, social, professional, or legal, is imposed, that is accountability, that is inclusion of both parties under the same standard of proof. That is justice. Everything else is a lie wearing a pronoun pin. If cutted inclusive accountability is just, why do institutions almost never punish women for false accusations, even when the falsehood is proven, documented, and admitted? Field guide, you will hear the phrase in polished rooms. It will sound humane. It is not humane. It is a mechanism designed to convert private feeling into public verdict, to strip you of presumption, evidence, and voice, all while congratulating itself for compassion. This is your field manual. 8 cards, carry them. Card 1. The HR microaggression. Q. We've received a complaint that your behavior made a colleague uncomfortable. We don't need to determine intent. Hidden move. Discomfort is reclassified as harm. Intent. The bedrock of justice since Aristotle is surgically removed. You are judged not for what you did, but for what she felt about what you did. And her feeling is treated as forensically equivalent to a fingerprint. Plain English, a woman told HR she didn't like something you said. That's the entire case. There is no other case. Socratic question. If discomfort is harm, what protects my discomfort from being weaponized the same way? Or does this rule only travel in one direction? Card 2, the campus tribunal. Q. This process prioritizes the well-being of the reporting party. Cross-examination would be re-traumatizing. Hidden move. The right to face your accuser won at Runnymede, affirmed in the 6th Amendment, rooted in Roman law from the 12 tables forward, is reframed as cruelty. By making inquiry itself a form of injury, the tribunal guarantees that no evidence can challenge the accusation. The accusation becomes the verdict. Plain English, she accused you. You cannot ask her questions. There is no defense. There was never going to be one. Socratic question: what specific evidence, if it existed, would cause this body to find me not responsible? And if you cannot name any, are you conducting an inquiry or a ritual? Card 3, the media narrative. Q. Multiple women have come forward with similar accounts. The pattern speaks for itself. Hidden move. Accusations are laminated together and called corroboration. 3 unverified claims become a pattern, and a pattern becomes proof. No single claim is tested, but all are treated as established because they agree in broad outline, which is exactly what you would expect if none were tested. Plain English, they printed accusations, they called them facts. Then they asked more people for accusations. Then they called that journalism. Socratic question: if 3 people independently claimed I stole their car, but no car was missing, would you call that a pattern of auto theft or 3 unsupported claims? Card 4, the social shaming spiral. Q. It's not about one incident, it's about the energy he brings. We all feel it. This is bigger than any one thing. Hidden move. The accusation is deliberately unmoored from any specific act, date, or witness. It migrates to the level of vibe, energy, and collective feeling. Categories that cannot be cross-examined because they have no content. You cannot defend yourself against a mood attributed to an invisible jury. Plain English. They can't name what you did wrong, so they're convicting you of your aura. The jury is everyone. The evidence is trust me. Socratic question: can you describe the behavior I should stop in a sentence using a verb, or is the complaint that I simply exist in a way you don't enjoy? Card 5, the family cart emotional harm stunted. Q. The mother reports that children experience distress during visitation. We're recommending supervised contact pending assessment. Hidden move. A child's distress, which may be coached, situational, developmentally normal, or a direct product of the mother's framing, is treated as evidence of your unfitness. The mother controls the child's emotional state, then offers that state as proof against you. She manufactures the evidence and is called a witness to it. Plain English. She can upset the children before your visit, report that they're upset, and the court punishes you by taking your time with them. She is the arsonist and the fire inspector. Socratic question: if the father reported identical distress during the mother's custody time, would the court restrict her access, or would it order him to stop alienating the children? Card 6, the therapy speak ambush. Q. When you raised your voice and presented data, I felt unsafe. That's a trauma response. You need to sit with that. Hidden move. Clinical language is borrowed to make her reaction untouchable. Trauma is invoked like a papal dispensation. It cannot be questioned, measured, or contextualized. Once the word unsafe is deployed, your argument is no longer an argument. It is an injury. The facts die. The feeling reigns. Plain English, she declared herself a patient mid-argument, which means your evidence is now a symptom and you are now the disease. Socratic question: is it possible to disagree with you vigorously, with facts, without that disagreement being reclassified as harm? If not, how would you know if you were wrong? Card 7, the institutional policy ambush. Q. This policy ensures our community is inclusive and accountable for all forms of harm, including those that are subtle or systemic. Hidden move. Harm is never defined. Subtle means imperceptible. Systemic means no individual act is required. Together, these 3 words create a charge that cannot be falsified because it cannot be specified. The policy is not a rule, it is a blank check drawn on your reputation. Plain English, they wrote a rule that says they can punish you for anything at any time for any reason, and they called it justice. Socratic question: can you provide a single example of a behavior that this policy explicitly permits, or is everything permitted only until someone decides it isn't? Card 8, the public debate disqualification. Q. You're centering male feelings. This isn't a debate about epistemology. Real people are being hurt. Hidden move. The demand for evidence, definitions, and consistent standards is reframed as harmful in itself. Asking for proof becomes denying lived experience. Insisting on logic becomes centering male epistemology. The effect. Every tool of rational inquiry is pre-labeled as an act of violence. You are disarmed before you speak. Plain English, they rigged the game so that asking for the rules makes you a cheater. The only winning move, they hope, is to surrender. Socratic question. If asking for evidence is itself harmful, how could anyone ever prove your claim is false? And if nothing could ever prove it false, what distinguishes it from a religious dogma? Final rule for the field. When the system tells you that your right to evidence is someone else's wound, you are not inside a justice process. You are inside a liturgy. The institution is the church. The accusation is the creed. Your confession is the tithe, defined before you obey. Ask until the mask names itself. The calm question is stronger than the angry speech. Carry the cards. Keep your spine. Speak slowly. Document everything. Final test. Every word the regime hands you is a locked room. Equity, safety, accountability, inclusive. These are not gifts. They are contracts written in a language designed so that your signature is already on the line before you finish reading. The woke lexicon survives only because good men mistake unfamiliar grammar for moral authority. It has none. Translate every term into plain English the moment it leaves an institution's mouth, and the cathedral collapses into what it is, a bureaucratic shakedown dressed in therapy vocabulary, transferring your money, your speech, your due process, and your children to people who could not earn them in the open. Here is your rule, and it is the only one that matters. Define before you obey, translate before you feel, audit who gains power before you comply. And then ask the detonating question, if this word means what you say it means, why does it always produce the opposite outcome? And why am I always the one who pays for it? Carry that question like a sword. It does not need anger. It needs to be asked once, clearly in the room where the decision is being made, by a man who has already decided that his conscience belongs to God and his language belongs to him. Sponsored book. Bluebeard's Mirror, reflecting the animus in modern women. If you're a man who's tired of being told to sit down, shut up, and apologize for existing, this book is for you. If you've ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in a world that glorifies female supremacy, while demonizing masculinity, you're not alone. I've been there. I felt the sting of being treated like a second-class citizen in the society that claims to value equality, but only if it means elevating women at the expense of men. This book is my attempt to make sense of the chaos, to understand why women seem to be at war with themselves and with us. I didn't set out to write this book because I wanted to be controversial. I wrote it because I saw a problem that no one else was willing to address. I saw men being stripped of their dignity, their strength, and their purpose, all in the name of progress. I saw women possessed by their inner Bluebeard, the animus, as Carl Jung called it, lashing out at men, projecting their own insecurities and fears onto us. I saw relationships crumbling under the weight of unrealistic expectations and toxic narratives, and I realized that if we don't confront these issues head-on, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. This book is not for everyone. If you're a die-hard feminist who believes that men are the root of all evil, you're not going to like what I have to say. If you're a man who's content to play the role of the beta male, constantly apologizing for your existence and bending over backward to please women who will never be satisfied, this book isn't for you either. Put it down. Go watch some Netflix or take up knitting. Do something that doesn't challenge your worldview. But if you're a man who's ready to reclaim your masculinity, to understand the psychological forces driving women's behavior, and to take control of your life, then keep reading. I've spent years studying the works of Carl Jung, evolutionary biology, and psychology to understand the dynamics between men and women. What I've found is that the animus, the inner masculine force in women, is often misunderstood. And when it's not properly integrated, it can wreak havoc on relationships and society as a whole. Women's animus possession leads to shit-testing, hypergamy, and a neurotic need for protection, all of which create a toxic environment for men. Feminism, far from being a movement for equality, has become a misandrist ideology that seeks to elevate women above men, destroying the very fabric of our civilization in the process. This book is a call to arms for men who are tired of being demonized, shamed, and oppressed. It's a guide to understanding the inner workings of the female mind and how it impacts your life. It's a roadmap to reclaiming your masculinity in a world that's trying to erase it. If you're ready to challenge the toxic narratives that are destroying our civilization, if you're ready to take control of your destiny, then this book is for you. But be warned, once you see the truth, there's no going back. Bluebeard's Mirror, Reflecting the Animus in Modern Women, written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.